a select committee working through it in the best ways possible. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Grant Robertson.
Mr Speaker, David Bennett clearly has been asleep for longer than I thought. Because I know he's been asleep for some time, Mr Speaker, but it was clearly longer because he appears to have forgotten that the RENA did actually run aground on Astrolabe Reef and a large amount of oil washed up on the beaches, Mr Bennett, a very large amount of oil. And ordinary New Zealanders got out there with their shovels and their buckets and put their gloves on and helped clean up those beaches because it mattered to them. And meanwhile, they said to themselves, what is the national government doing? What's it been doing to make sure that things like this, when they happen, the cost is mitigated on New Zealanders? And the truth that Mr Bennett knows, Mr Speaker, is that when his government came in 2008, not only had a select committee recommended that these conventions be signed up to, not only had the select committee recommended that, the drafting instructions for this legislation, for putting in place those international conventions into New Zealand law, which would have significantly limited the liability on New Zealand taxpayers, the drafting instructions had been written. We've got the official Information Act documents that show us that the drafting instructions were already written. The government was ready to go on this and it sat on it. It sat on this from day one of coming in to government. And then, in October 2011, we have the worst ever maritime disaster in this country, and that government over there had 3 years to get that law in place. The work had been done by the previous Labor government. It was ready to go. The conventions were looked at, they were studied, the drafting instructions were written, and that government let New Zealanders down by not making sure that legislation was in place. And so today, we have New Zealanders who believe in protecting their coastline, who got out there and worked hard to make sure that they cleaned up those beaches. They've been let down by this government because this government failed to put in place the law so that there was an obligation on those shipping companies to meet their fair share of the costs. So today the bill comes here and we support it because of course it's the right thing to do. But we support it knowing that this need not have happened, Mr Speaker, that New Zealanders need not have had to foot such a huge bill if the government on the other side had done its job properly and implemented these conventions. Mr Speaker.
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member. The time has come for me to leave the chair for the dinner break. This debate is interrupted. I shall resume the chair at 7:30.